Good evening, everybody. Hello, welcome. And tonight is the last night of Tuesday night nonfiction prepper book club. Our last night of discussing, oh my gosh, Grid Down, Death of a Nation by Jonathan Hollerman. Phenomenal book. We're doing the conclusion. We're kind of going through the thought exercises that he has at the very end of the book. And if you have a pencil or pen, writing implement, let's call it, and paper to take notes, I think it might be worthwhile this evening to take some notes. For those of you who are watching the replay, welcome. Thank you. Wish you would join us. We do a nonfiction post-apocalyptic book every Tuesday evening. So we go through the entire book over time. And on Monday nights, we're working on civics and U.S. Government 101. So both of those are at 8 o'clock Central Time. I hope that doesn't keep people on the East Coast up too late. I know that's past my bedtime. But anyhow, let me get up here. Oh, by the way, tonight, Gray Man Prepping at 9 o'clock Central, right after we finish here, Gray Man Prepping is doing a live discussion on the do's and don'ts if you go to a FEMA camp. He is an ex-FEMA employee and Department of Homeland Security employee. And so he's going to be doing on his channel the do's and don'ts of what's permissible, what's not, if you are put into a FEMA camp. So that sounds like a very interesting thing. I hope I can stay awake long enough to do that. Let's take a look at who all's here. South Florida, DCL. Oh, if you are new, I would appreciate you subscribing. And if you just hit that thumbs up button for us, we'd also greatly appreciate that. So South Florida, DCL was number one, Scott Hummer. And then we've got Sue Me. Good evening, our good friend from north of the border up there in Canada. Diana 2 and Little Lone Prepper, Utah Mike, welcome. And so that looks like that's checked in. There's more than that actually watching. We've got some people kind of just watching and staying in the sidelines. Hopefully they'll join us in the comments. You know, this is an opportunity not only to take notes, but for you to offer your advice and for you to offer your experience. Patriot Ordinance, welcome. That's a new name for me. Welcome. I'm very happy to see you here with us. Butch Graves, welcome. Good to see you too. So anyhow, just a phenomenal book. I did make up my mind, and I kind of warned you about this last week. We're going to start food storage for preppers. Whoops, I took this off of my Hollerman book. That was just a place to store it until I put it somewhere else. So anyhow, we're going to do food storage for preppers. There will be a link. You can order it from Amazon down below in the description. Remember, if you do order it from Amazon, I get a small percentage. It's 1 or 2% of your sale price I get as a commission for you using that link. But we will be discussing this. I think this is really important. This is set up as a 52-week exercise. So if you do one chapter a week, you've got some fantastic exercises, some practice, some good things to put into place over the course of 1 year. We're going to speed that up. We're going to do about 4 chapters a week. So I think we're getting close enough to where SHTF is imminent that we need to speed this book up and get all this knowledge into you as soon as possible. So if we can do that for a week, 4 chapters a week, then we should be able to get that done in 13 weeks. Okay, so that's all that stuff. Pat Butler, hello, welcome. Theoxorus, well, good to see you too, sir. Teresa Buchanan and Cats in Prepping. James Trump, 24 Price. I haven't seen that name before, so welcome to you as well, sir. Glad to have you here with us. Okay, so let's get into this phenomenal book, and please, I had the link for this, the free PDF if you want to print it yourself. Since it was presented to Congress, you can get a copy of that for free through the PDF. Print that if you want it, store it, download it, just read it on your computer, or you can order the book off of Amazon. And once again, if you use the link that's in the description down below, I get 2%, I believe, of the sales price of it. It's not that expensive, $18. So I make 36 cents. But great book to have to add to your collection. I think it's really something that we need to think about, especially with all the people who are crossing the borders. They're saying now that what they told the Senate today or yesterday was it that an October 7th type encounter here in the U.S. is imminent based on the number of unaccompanied Chinese military-age males who have crossed the border. 1,500, no, I'm sorry, 150 a day at the San Diego crossing for the last 2 years. And just a fairly consistent thing. They'd come up in vans, drop them off at the border. They cross the border, come into the U.S. We ask them where they want to go. They tell us where they want to go, and we're kind of setting up ourselves for what's going to be happening. So, so I think that if it were me, okay, I'm looking at this from an intelligence analyst point of view. If it were me, I would just, number one, do what Jonathan Hollerman says here, take out the grid. We've had several attacks on substations since I was working in the industry, and we would get some information on attacks on substations. And let me see, I left that industry, worked for 3 years in the health as the HR director for the homeless shelter. Then I owned my store for 3 years, and I haven't had that. So about 8 years ago, we were having regular attacks, seeing our vulnerabilities on our substations for our power grid. It would not surprise me if this imminent thing that we think is going to happen would not be directed, number one, against our power grid, and then number two, against the residuals that would be happening. And we'll talk about those, that timeline that he gives at the conclusion this evening. So October 7th is when Israel experienced their major thing that has caused what's happening in Israel versus Hamas and Hezbollah right now. Devil Dog Prepper, good evening, welcome. And Celtic Grandma, welcome to you as well. Always good to see all these phenomenal, fantastic people. Just great. Let's get into this first banner here. So this is in his conclusion, his major points, and this starts about, let me see, I've got that tabbed here. So I'm basically starting on page 76. How would it affect you personally? Okay. So number one, food's going to run out. The vast majority of Americans probably only have 2 to 3 days of food in their home. And that's going to be an awful lot of that's going to be refrigerated. You're going to have to get rid of that real quick because there won't be any electricity. They may have cans, and Hollerman talks in the book about if there are those who, if they are really, really hungry, might be eating uncooked things, raw stuff, because there won't be any water, there won't be any electricity. Vast number of people have electrical appliances and won't be able to cook. So, people will be eating raw stuff. So maybe at the end of the first week, some people will be eating some of their stuff long-term, what we would consider short-term, but what they would consider long-term raw foods, uncooked in their pantries. But certainly by the end of the first week, the vast majority of U.S. Citizens or people residing here in the U.S. Would be without food. So now let's take that and extrapolate that just a little bit and remember the rules of three. So 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter from an inclement environment. I just recently watched, I know what it was. Green Man Prepping had Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy on his show. And Dr. Bones was talking about hypothermia. And it can be less than 3 hours if you're exposed to freezing conditions like an ice storm. Hello, Forrest, welcome. So, it can be down to as much as 15 minutes or even an hour, hour, 15 minutes. So, that 3 hours of unprotection or lack of protection in an inclement environment can cost you your life. Then they say 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. So that's the rule of threes. 3 seconds without, 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without protection from inclement weather, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So if we say that they're going to run out of food at the end of that first 24 hours, first week, and then we add 3 weeks to that, then the vast majority of Americans will be starving at the end of the second week for sure, and then dying somewhere between this end of the second week and up until the fourth week, depending upon how frail they are. Now, remember, there was also mentioned that we have so many people who are dependent upon electrical assistance for medical purposes. A lot of those people are going to succumb very early on during this grid down situation. Theoxerus had a comment here. Owning the land doesn't scare me, but what they could do to the land or food or hide there does scare me. Amen. And I have a feeling those are the assembly points for all these unaccompanied Chinese military age men. Sumi says uncooked food, and it was sitting in a warm environment. Death by gastro, ugly way to go. Amen. We were 71 degrees today here. So remember last week we were freezing almost down into the single digits, and this week we're at 71 degrees. If you don't like the weather in Texas, wait 5 minutes. Okay, so that's number one, grid down. The next one is grocery stores have just-in-time inventory. So it used to be when I was younger that they had a storage room back in the back. They had a refrigerator back in the back. If you didn't find something on the shelves, you could always go to somebody and say, hey, can you check out back and see if you have any of this in the boxes out there? And they would go back and check for you. No more of that. It's just-in-time inventory. As a matter of fact, when you scan whatever your purchase is, in this case, I'm using the example of, let's say this bottle of water. It's got a barcode on it. When you scan that, not only does it tell the cash register that you have purchased this and that is the purchase price, it also checks their just-in-time inventory system. So they have a minimum threshold and a maximum threshold. So when it hits that minimum threshold, when you click this and say, hey, I just bought this, then they say, oh, we are now at our minimum that we want to have stored. It sends out an automatic procurement order to restock that item so that they'll deliver it within the next 3 days. So most stores have, that just-in-time inventory system. And because of that, they probably turn over their entire inventory every 3 days. So you probably will run out. Now just think, if the grid goes down, there's going to be chaos. And part of that chaos is going to be people are going to run to the stores to get what they can as soon as they can, as soon as they figure out. So that first day of it happening and maybe the next day afterwards, it's going to be like a Black Friday sale after Thanksgiving. You don't want to be in the stores. People are going to be fighting over bags of chips and things like that. Avoid those stores. And the best way to avoid those, of course, is we are preppers. And so we won't be going to those stores. And I turned my mouse off. Stupid me, and I can't get this to work. So let me see where we are here. Oh, Theoxerus says it was 45 degrees where he is. Okay, so now the next question we have to ask ourselves that he asked us later on. I'm putting these into a more logical order for me, but all these are different comments he puts there starting in page 76. This one was actually kind of about 2/3 of the way through his summary. But while we're on the story of food, how trustworthy are the members of your group? Have you checked out, are they doing what they said they were going to do? Are they buying their share of food? Or are they depending on you? Are they saying, we don't have to? Sally has it all taken care of. We'll just eat her food. How trustworthy? Do you know that they are doing what they've obligated themselves to do as far as being a member of your group? I asked that question at our group, and it turns out that I have, unfortunately, a better food supply than the vast majority of the rest of my group. Now, they are far better off tactically than I am. So they figure that they're going to sell their services of protecting me for my food. But, I don't have enough to where we're going to last a long time to feed all of them, even with their protection. And the other question is, at what time do they, who have the better tactical training, at what point do they say, Lee, if we get rid of you and your wife, then we have another month's worth of food for us to survive. So you've got to start asking yourself these questions. How well can you trust the people that you have basically gotten together with, if you have gotten together with them. So let me check comments before I move on to the next bullet there. So Utah Mike says he has a similar system for food storage himself. When he hits the minimum, he purchases more. What my way has been that we had our food storage. And so if we pulled 1 can of chili out to make chili and rice, next time I went to the store, I'd buy 2 cans. And so that's how I've kind of kept mine up. And then when I do my orders from Thrive Life, I go into my spreadsheet and I say, what do I have the least of? And so then I typically order whatever it is I have the least of to try to bring it up so that I can have everything kind of on par. Now, I do have some minimums there. So my minimum, for example, sausage, I don't want to have as much sausage as I do ground beef. So I kind of, I guess, have the same thought process you do. But up until now, it's been 2 for 1 in the canned goods and the flour and stuff. Oh, I wanted to show you. Do a good cost analysis because, take a look at what it's going to cost you for a can, which is about 6.5 pounds of flour. If you order it online, let's say from Rainy Day Foods, a fantastic company, good pricing, good company. I don't get anything from them if you order from them. Versus what you're going to pay for a can at your local LDS Provident Living store, which is also very good prices, very good company. I don't get anything from them either. Versus what you have to pay for a can from Thrive Life. Good company. I do get commissions if you buy using my link from them. However, you can do it yourself. So what I do is now I'm concentrating on getting as much food as possible before whatever's going to happen happens. That means I'm not spending a whole bunch of money on number 10 cans as much as I am on other things. So if I go get a 5-pound bag of flour, I take that 5-pound bag and then I use make your own size seal bags. Okay. And so then I'll put a bay leaf inside that bag. I'll put an oxygen absorber inside that bag. Then I'll put it inside my seal-a-meal, seal maker, and suck all the oxygen out with that seal-a-meal, seal it shut. Now, once I've done that, I leave it in the bag because you don't want any of that loose flour or cornmeal or anything like that gumming up the works in your suction system. So and then it's going to turn rock hard because all the air is gone. So that's one good way of inexpensively getting a large supply of rice, flour, cornmeal, cocoa, things like that. Okay. So let me catch up here. Gosh, a lot of good comments, I guess, because I'm not keeping up with them. So we'll get down here because it appears Little and Prepper agrees with Phioxerus around the land that the Chinese now have a farmland that they own primarily around key military bases and power distribution centers. So hint, what I said earlier. So Utah Mike orders online. I do too. Although today this came in, and I don't know why, but I checked the prices, and so for this can of peaches on Amazon, I got this set over here for my Saturday haul video. I paid $37.99 for it, and that's on automatic every other month. And I checked, and I said, "What's my Thrive Life cost? And what's my Algerson Farms cost? And what's my who's the other one I use?" Hoosier Hills, and what are my prices there? And I found out that actually Thrive Life is the cheapest to get peaches. So I canceled my subscription, my every other month subscription from this company to send me my peaches every other month. Then I ordered some tomato dices. And I said, "Can I get these cheaper?" And this was a cheaper price than Thrive Life because I assumed that this was a number 10 can by the way it looked. So this price here is cheaper than a number 10 can of Thrive Life. And by the way, they've discontinued number 10 cans. So now I went in and checked the price for what I'm paying for the 2.5s, what they call pantry cans. This is a 2.5 and the same size. And actually that's $3 more than Thrive Life. So In both cases, ordering through Amazon, I'm paying more. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those back into my Thrive Life order, which will be over $200 for this month because of that. Hello, KP Heathen. Welcome. So Fiaxra says his trust level for others is less than 5%. I've got one guy, we've had this plan that he's going to come here. He is a 9th degree black belt in Kajikimbo. I've known him for 20 years. And he is really good with firearms. As a matter of fact, he is the one who got me with my CCL, concealed carry license, instructor and test and everything else. And I did some shooting classes with them. A really great guy, really like him. But, you know, his best friend is not me. And his best friend has an invalid wife. And so the question I have to ask myself is, you know, what happens when I'm asleep? Is he going to take care of his best friend and his invalid wife, or is he going to take care of his obligation to me? Don't know. You know, family, I was planning on my daughter and son-in-law to be part of that, the overall stuff. And I was planning food for them because I knew that they didn't have it. And then they up and moved to New Jersey. So now they're gone. So yeah, trust is going to be a big issue for me, a very big issue. And I don't know about you, but Sumi says she's a family of one. Sumi, you can come here. Diana 2 says the same thing. So yeah, Diana 2, you can, you know, come to Central Texas. We'll see what we can do. So Devil Dog says he tries to keep up his Excel spreadsheet, but sometimes he has to sit down and redo it all, or we'll have a major update. Yes. And so my biggest thing is spices, toilet paper, and canned goods. I have a hard time keeping up with those. I try, and I got too intricate at one point. I was actually trying to put in expiration date on my inventory, and then where they were located in my pantry room, what shelf, what you know, shelving system, what shelf, all that kinds of stuff. It was just far too complicated to keep up with, so I just gave up on it. And I eventually just gave up on cans, period, canned goods. So my canned goods are just, if I pull one, I replace it with two. Now I'm at the point to where there's no space to replace it with two. So when I use one, I replace it with one. Let me see here. Scott Hummer has something here. Oh, that's just a link. Thank you for posting those, Scott. I greatly appreciate that. Yeah, if you would support the other people, who, especially those who have channels, I would greatly appreciate it. So Pennsylvania Preparedness says, hey, all, I'm here, just meal prepping, so I'm listening. Well, welcome. Glad that you're here and glad that you're listening. Okay, let me get down here. And so Devil Dog Prepper says, buy wheat berries in a grinder, much better for you nutritional wise, and makes more flour and last longer. I agree with I agree with everything, but the last longer is a key component. And yes, you can get your wheat berries, both red and white, at the LDS Provident Living Center very inexpensively. Also Rainy Day Foods. And another good store to get those from is Azure Standard. Now, Azure Standard only delivers once a month, and you have to go pick them up. But if you call them and talk to them and tell them, and, you know, have them give you a presentation on how to go through their website, they will give you a discount for your first purchase. So, you know, just call them and talk to them, and then you get a discount. And, you know, getting a good grinder from them, actually check your Goodwill stores and your secondhand stores and stuff like that for grain grinders. You might get pretty good deals there. You might find something. Let me see here. Okay. I'll put a link to the LDS Provident Living store in the show notes at the end. It's a great one. As a matter of fact, maybe I can do that right now. Father James Parker is live. Divine Will Era Premiere, the Carmelites and Divine Will Institute of Catholic Culture. Everything I have is coming in tonight is religious. So this should be in my LDS Home Storage Center order form. There we go. So this will kind of get you to the right place. And let me see if I can't post that on our here. So if you can, save this. This is the order form to the LDS if you want to order over the phone or through their website. Maybe that'll help you. And then Rainy Day Foods is also very, very good as far as pricing and quality. Wow, 33 watching. That's got to be a record. Thank you, everybody. I greatly, greatly appreciate that. Triple G Farms, you are quite welcome, sir. Oh, by the way, let's see if we can't plan another a lunch get together. Probably the last. I want to go up to Fort Hood to the commissary, and so then from there it's just a quick trip over to your place, but maybe the last weekend in February, first weekend in March, if you're available. Let's see if we can't do that and just have a little get together, and I might have something that would be of interest to both of us. So, but welcome, always good to see you. Yes, every demand is going up. So it used to be that only like 2% of us were preppers, and they're saying that is going up to 5%, and they're anticipating that with everything that's going on right now, it may be up to 10%. Companies like Keystone Meats can't keep up with their with certain items. They no longer allow me to have turkey and hamburger on my auto ship every month. They took those away. Can't have those on auto ship anymore. You just order them when you get a chance. Who is it? Yoder's can't keep up with demand. Wholesale freeze dry wholesale. They just sell to preppers as a sideline. Their primary customers, the Department of Defense and U.S. government. I saw him in an interview on Canadian Prepper, and he was saying that they can't keep up with demand for the military. So demand for freeze-dried foods and prepping foods is going up. So of course, as demand goes up, price goes up to meet it. So that's that ISLM curve we learned in accounting, or no, in economics. Sophioxerus. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's another thing thank you for bringing that up, Phioxerus. That's an absolutely great idea. If you don't want to put the bay leaf in, spend the money on a bay leaf and save that up and spend it on other prepping items, then Phioxerus has a great idea. Take that same bag that you have put into your Seal-A-Meal or whatever system you use and put it in the freezer for about a week. If you put it in the freezer for about a week, that will kill off any larvae that might be in there, which is what you're trying to accomplish with the bay leaf. So, the two things you want to do is get rid of all the oxygen in the bag and get rid of all the possible eggs and larvae that might be in the bag as well. Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be extremely tough. I used to do 5-gallon buckets, double doggy, but in the military, we move so often, the cost of the bucket and then the oxygen absorber. And actually, what I was doing was I would take so when I opened a can of whatever to eat, I would save the lid, and then I put that lid on top of anything I had in a 5-gallon can, and then I would go out and get about a thumb-size piece of that size, okay, piece of dry ice, and put the dry ice on top of that lid so that it didn't freeze burn anything that was underneath of it. And then that as the dry ice melts, it produces carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is heavier than air, so it displaces all the air. The air would be pushed up, the carbon dioxide would go down. Then as soon as that was completely melted, then I'd screw the lid on. And so that's how I kind of preserved back, 20, 30 years ago. Amen. And in my intro, if you go down to the bottom, there is a letter from St. Paul to Timothy, and it says, "If they do not work, then they shall not eat." And so that's biblical. That if you're not willing to help me out, then I'm not willing. I'm not obligated to help you out. Let me see here. I try to keep beans and rice to a 2 to 2.5 pounds. Wheat goes in at 6 cups per bag. Great idea. I'm that same way. For the longest time, I preferred these cans because what I figured was if I opened it, I could use the use the contents in a fairly short period of time, and I wouldn't have any waste. Even though almost all freeze-dried products, if you keep this lid on it, they'll last for a year, except for dairy and meat. They don't have that full year. You probably don't want to keep those open for more than about 3 months. But anyhow, the rest of it you can keep for a year after you open it. So I figured, well, this way I'm opening more on a regular basis, and that way I don't have to worry about them going bad if I don't use them. Now, however, I want to get the greatest amount of volume for the smallest amount of money, so I'm going strictly with number 10. Well, not strictly, primarily with number 10 cans. So that's the same philosophy. Try to get everything in bulk and then downsize it when you can. Great idea. Let me see. The unknown knowns. So does everybody know what he's talking about? That's the, I want to say Johari window, but I'm not sure if that's right. But you have known knowns. There are things, yeah, it is the Johari window, Johari. There are things that you know that other people know, so that's the known knowns. There are things that you think you know, but you really don't. And then there's things that you don't know, or you know that you don't know. So, for example, I know that I don't know how to do an appendectomy, okay? But then there are also the unknown unknowns, okay? So I don't know how I'll react if somebody comes to my front door tonight with a flamethrower. You know, that I'll have to learn how I'm going to do that. I can hopefully predict how I'll do it, but those are the 4 things: known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns. So are there things that you would instinctively know how to do, but you just right now don't have the confidence to say, I know how to do it? And then the unknown unknowns, the 4 categories of the Johari window. Okay, now that we had a little bit of philosophy, canned meat. I don't concern myself with the best by date. I have run the test. Yes, amen. I wholeheartedly agree. There's a lot of things. We found a box of cornmeal that I had not vacuum sealed. And it was, one of those Jiffy corn mixes. And for some reason, I did not vacuum seal it. And we were kind of redoing the inventory and rotating and everything. And it was from 2015. So we had it with a pot of beans here, over the weekend. And it turned out it was very flat. Obviously, the leavening agent in it was long expired. So instead of rising up and being a little bit more fluffy cornmeal, it was a very flat cake and almost like a pilot bread. But it was still edible. So you just crumble it up and put it inside your beans and juice, and it was good to go. So obviously, if it was from 2015, that was 8 years ago, and we're still alive, we do that too. Oh, I guess that's a name. Oh, it is the Unknown Nose. Okay, welcome, Unknown Nose. Great to see you. Welcome. That's the first time I've seen that name too. I'm very sorry that I thought that was just a comment, but welcome, welcome, welcome. Alternative Homesteading, welcome. Good to see your name in there too. I haven't seen that before. Yeah, their pickup points are pretty much designated where there's going to be a concentration of people. So you would think that here in Round Rock we would have a delivery point, but it's actually up north in the county seat. Round Rock is a bigger city than the county seat, but they deliver up in the county seat. So who knows? It's not that far, but it is what it is. Militant Roots don't understand that, but hopefully it's nice, it's kind, polite, and respectful. Let me see here. Sumi says that she's working on emptying the freezers. That way a power interruption will be less impactful. Great, great, great. Now also, if you keep your freezer full, they will have a tendency to retain that coldness for a period of time, probably a day to 2 longer than if you have a loosely packed freezer. So Holly Ivans has an LDS center 12 miles from her home. As a matter of fact, Ours is open Saturday mornings from 9 to noon, and then Sunday afternoons from noon to 7. So I can't make it over there and get back here in time for this on Tuesdays, unless I go early in the afternoon. But we have our senior exercise class, Silver Sneakers, is Tuesday afternoon. And sometimes, like today, it just wears me out. Canned meat, fish is the one thing I have begun rotating, but it's been a necessity. We can understand that. I think there's a lot of people. Yes, LDS shipping is super cheap. Yes, sir, it sure is. Let me see. I would like to get a 55-gallon oil drum, and I want to use it for waste disposal. So let me see if I can't get down here. Gosh, a lot of great comments. Thank you all so much. Larva is extra protein. Yeah, that's true, Forrest. Wow, that sounds exciting. I went to Sam's today and priced a pork belly because I bought some. You saw, I've got a whole bunch of canning salts, and so I've been watching, and I bought a couple books on how to make my own bacon because I want to do some long-term storage of bacon. I can't find Yoder's bacon, and so I did get those pre-cooked 6-month shelf life bacons that you can keep out. You don't even have to refrigerate them for 6 months. So what I did was I put those into 6 strips of bacon per vacuum seal bag, and then vacuum sealed those, and those are in the freezer. They don't have to be in the freezer. I have them vacuum sealed, but I'm trying to get a steady, what do you call it, inventory of bacon. I don't know what I'll do without bacon. I don't know what I'll do without ice cream. Yes, and so you saw that I stocked up on 2 different kinds of the soft dog food this last either this last haul or the haul before that. I got 1 box of Caesar and 1 box of Pedigree, and I found out I had a Pedigree box hidden. So I now have 6 boxes of those Pedigrees. I don't need that many, I don't think, but it's good to have them. I'm going to go ahead and do the 1 box replacement, and then I have 4 of Caesars, and then I have 1 of those packets of, it looks like ground beef and cheese. The girls don't like that though. So once I eat that, once I get rid of that, I'm not going to replace it. I'm down to only 3 bags of food, dry food. So I got to get some of that too. I bought a different kind that's a little bit cheaper. We've been feeding them Nutro. That's relatively expensive, but it helps with their mess inside the house. If that happens, it keeps it nice and solid, and I don't have to worry about too much of the other stuff, the liquid poop. Let me see here. Let's get past here. Okay. Let me go back to the banners. So now we talked about your network, your group. Same thing applies to your neighbors. If you have been there's 3 or 4, 5 neighbors here in this subdivision that know I'm a prepper. Although some of them, I keep harping on, let's get together and talk about how we're going to support each other if there's another Snowmageddon or Ice-Mageddon. So they know I'm prepared that way. I don't think they've thought it out about how prepared I am other ways. But there are 1, 2, 3, there are 4, no, Scott, 5. There are 5 families who know that I'm a prepper, and we've kind of agreed. We have agreed upon, communications, walkie-talkies, and things like that, self-defense. I have even gone shooting with the guy next doors. So we go to the range together and things like that. But what happens if my food outlasts theirs? Are they willing to turn against me to stay alive? Don't know. So, your neighbors, I wouldn't really call it a group. My neighbors are less closely affiliated with me than my group, but my group is not all here in this neighborhood. So I'm trying to turn my neighbors into a group, and we'll see how that goes. Another thing you need to consider is after about the end of the 2nd week, some people will have candles and flashlights, but and he points out, after about the 2nd week, if you have light coming from your home, after it gets dark, you will become a target because you have something other people don't, and they're going to assume that you have more than that. So between weeks, probably the end of week 2 and up until the end of week 5, live like they do, okay, without light at night, without electrical noises or machines during the daytime. And that kind of brings up another question, and that is, how are you going to cook indoors? Because you don't want to be cooking outdoors while everybody around you is starving because they'll smell the charcoal or whatever. So you want to cook indoors, you want to have food, so you just add water, or you can eat raw. Well, raw from the can. So, something like a can of chili, that's pre-cooked. In the process of canning it, they actually cook it. So you're just warming it up when you warm it up. So it is edible as it is in the can. So, you're going to have to do probably 2 or 3 weeks of things like that, or MREs, or mountain house, where you're just boiling some water inside your house and adding that to the mountain house packet, or nutrient survival, same thing. Just add hot water to it and seep it. So all those things, that's probably what you want to cook from the end of week 3 until, I'm going to say, until at least the end of week 5, possibly until the end of week 6, so that other people don't know that you have food and they don't come try to take it from you. After that, then the question is, how are you going to cook outdoors? Are you going to have charcoal? You're going to have a supply of wood. If you're going to use wood, make sure you start cutting and curing it now, because they recommend that you not burn any wood freshly cut, because you can get all kinds of different accumulations of gases and everything else. They recommend that you cure that at least 6 months and preferably a year before you burn it. So start taking that into consideration now, that you're going to need things to cook with after SHTF. Personal opinion, and I'm not keeping up with the conversation, so I may be sticking my nose in where it doesn't belong. But alternative homesteading, what did you do to combat boredom? I don't think we're going to have that much boredom in a post-apocalyptic world. I think we're going to be so busy collecting water, purifying water, storing water, firewood, cooking, taking care of things inside. At some point, we're going to be hunting, trapping, cooking, gardening, farming. I think that we're going to be just like the Old West, possibly even up until the 1930s. Because remember, the most of the rural United States was not electrified until the Rural Electrification Act of 1933, I think. The vast majority of farms did not have electricity. So I think we're going to go back to that kind of an environment. I can remember my grandmother had the old lantern. We played Parcheesi and card games at night under an oil lantern. So I think we're going to go back to that. And I think people are going to be too tired for too much entertainment. Yes, little known preppers. As a matter of fact, I stopped the manager at our local Walmart and I said, hey, I found a case that your can denter missed. And I found a couple cans that weren't dented. So obviously he's failing to do his job. So can I apply for that job? I'd love to have the job to keep all these cans dented that you put out. He didn't think it was funny. Oh, wow. Yep. So I don't know where my daughter's moving to, but right now she's living in Bud Lake, I think is the name of it. And but she bought a house and she's moving the end of March. Oh, I'm sorry, the end of February. So great idea, Butch Graves. Great idea. And they also sell blackout curtains at Walmart. So I recommend you get those as well. So a little bit of nails and blackout curtains and duct tape or black plastic or anything like that. Fantastic. Outstanding idea. Thank you for sharing that. And that's great too. So the Instapot with a solar battery system is a great idea. And I've got a little bitty 1-burner electric burner, and I've got a bread machine that I bought that I can use with the solar system. So thinking about how, and that's a question I'm going to ask. Oh, I did ask. Never mind. You're answering the question already. How are you going to cook, after the grid goes down? So great thought process, Utah Mike. Great thought process. Utah Mike says a solar oven. Absolutely. Who was it? Was it Little Lone Prepper, Sumi? Somebody was talking about solar ovens. We were just talking about that here in the last couple of weeks with somebody. Open carry is legal here too. And this was back when, but you had to have a license to conceal. Now we are both without a license, open and concealed. I just prefer not to have people know that whether or not I'm armed. As a matter of fact, when I went to court, I had to sue the person who bought my store from me for a breach of contract because they didn't fulfill all the obligations of the contract. And as a matter of fact, just before I got on here, I was conversing with my attorney on how much I owe him, and hopes I get my money from her. But anyhow, she said that I'm a very difficult man to deal with, and that I even threatened her with a gun. And so my attorney says, "What's this? I'm going to put you back on the stand." And so I had to explain what it was. And so with my injuries from the military, I can't stand for too long. So my wife bought me a stool, a back stool from IKEA. And I don't know what happened that day, but I didn't wear a belt. And so I wear an inside the waistband holster. And so something happened, and I jumped up from the chair. When I jumped up from the chair, the holster caught on the back of that tall stool. And of course, there was no belt for it to clip on, and it just fell out. And so that's the carry incident that she was so intimidated by. And so once I explained it, the judge understood what was going on. Yes, great idea. Canadian Prepper showed one, and then I looked it up online on Amazon. God, they wanted $150 for one. And yeah, if you have something reflective, you can do it yourself. Absolutely true. Let me see here. Absolutely. Blacking out all your windows and any other ways where people can either see or hear. Because remember, as you're adding that blackout material, you're also adding another layer of sound protection. And you don't want people hearing what's going on inside your home either. Yeah, and that scares me, Butch. My digital closed circuit camera system, when it detects movement, it turns on a floodlight. So I've got to find a way of having just the camera without the floodlight, deactivating the floodlight. So I'll have to do that. Yeah. So Alternative says that there was no boredom during Hurricane Sandy. Been without 12240 for over 3 months now. It isn't easy, but it is manageable. 12-volt in the car for charging comms, etc. Battery operated lights, etc. Way to go! And so, for those of you who don't know, Hill Summit Homestead is in Australia. So they have some different things going on down there, and he's out on a homestead that's he does some walks on his property, and so seeing the stuff that he's planted, the trees and everything else is great. It makes me jealous. Okay, so Alternative says that the blackout curtains are outstanding, and let me get down here. Yeah, it is a good thing my pants didn't fall down. Now they do. I told my wife I probably need to start. I'm at that point now to where I'm getting Dunlap's disease, old age belly Dunlaps over the belt, and so it's probably at that point in my life where I need to start wearing suspenders. I am in the process of doing that, Triple G. So we have a ham group here. The county ham group meets every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock at a Mexican restaurant. So I've been going every Saturday for the last 2 months. And I'm going to take my test at the end of February. So I plan to get my technician and general license at the end of February. And then one of the guys, Rick, he says, Lee, don't buy anything. He says, I've got almost everything in my shed. I will loan it to you. Find out what you like. We'll get you set up. We'll get you operating. We'll get you an antenna and everything else. And then once you find out what it is you like, you can either buy it from me or you can buy a new one. But don't buy something, because if you do, almost guaranteed, whatever you buy first, you won't like. You'll want something better. So you use other people's UOPs. We used to say that about smoking, that we always, OPs always tasted better, other people's cigarettes, because you didn't have to pay for them. Absolutely. Now I am back up to 7 cans of 3-pound coffee. And I bought one. It was in my Saturday haul, this last Saturday haul. So there we go. Let me see. Okay, let's go back to the banners. And so another thing to consider is that point of sale systems won't be working. Only cash transactions will. So have plenty of cash and nothing larger than a 20. So 1s and 5s are probably going to be your best friends. So one of my friends, as a matter of fact, the guy who's coming here, the 9th degree black belt, I forget the name of it now. Anyhow, when he's coming here, I have he knows that I'm into coins and gold and silver. So he asked me if I would take a look at a $3 gold piece, 1855 $3 gold piece. His father said it was counterfeit. I couldn't see that it was counterfeit. It weighed right. Everything looked right. So I said, well, meet me at the guy that I go to. And it turns out the guy I've been going to for the last 20 years is selling his store. So he won't be in business but another 2 months. But I do know the new owner, Joe. He's been a customer there I've run into for the last 20 years too. But anyhow, so we were talking, and he said, yeah, this is counterfeit. And I said, how did you tell? Show me how you. And so he showed me the horns that make a Chinese counterfeit instead of, imagine the Chinese were counterfeiting our money back in 1855, or newer, representing 1855. But anyhow, he said, well, I also have a 1-ounce gold Canadian maple leaf. Can I sell that to you? He says, absolutely not. He says, everybody is selling right now. What I don't have are buyers. And I thought I'd never hear that with precious metals, that nobody wanted to buy. And so it just totally shocked my entire thought process over the last 30 years that even the dealers aren't buying right now because nobody else wants to buy their inventory. And they're getting stuck with large inventories of gold and silver that they can't get rid of. So I have a feeling that's going to change here in the very near future, because we're seeing a lot of things happen on the economic front, both in Europe as well as here in the States. I think it'll become more and more valuable, and people will be looking for it. But I never thought I'd hear those words come out of a broker. So remember that fuel, gasoline, what you have is what you'll have. Without electricity, there won't be any pumps at the gas station. Some of them do have generators, maybe lasting 48, 72 hours. That's going to be it. My plan is, that's the number one place I'm going to go hit. But I have 4 or 5 gallon cans. I have one of them full. The other 3 are in reserve. I don't keep those full simply because I don't want to be a fire hazard. And consider, if you have a lot of flammable items or a lot of ammunition, explosive items in your home, and something happens to your home, it can be reason for your insurance company to deny a claim. So make sure you're storing everything safely, and preferably not directly, I don't know why I've got gas so bad tonight, and not directly inside your home. Gosh, we're at 54 minutes. Unbelievable. So communications will be down. Now the county ham club here, they're UV5R and Yaesu YA6, those VHF, UHF, FM repeaters, those will be up. The ham club here operates 3 repeaters. One of them has a 72-hour diesel generator backup. The other 2 have solar backups. So you're going to have those repeaters are going to be available to you. But other than that, I don't know how other ham clubs? Are they directly put into the power grid? Do they have a solar system? Do they have? Chances are UHF, VHF will stay up longer than the others, but don't count on it. Okay. I know for sure your cell phones are going to go dead here pretty quick. Of course, your home, mainline phones, internet, things like that are going to go down very quickly after the grid goes down. Let me check on comments here, because it looks like we got 16 new ones since the last time I checked. Pri-G is fantastic for gasoline. Pri-D for diesel. Sumi and Toolman Tim, who's a fellow Canadian to you, he's the one that turned me on to Pri-G and Pri-D. Up until that time, I had been using, what's the name of it? Stabil, S-T-A-B-I-L. So I added a thing of Stabil. What I'm doing is I'm investing, instead of buying gasoline, I'm buying Stabil and Pri-G. And that way, when I come across gasoline, and the amazing thing Toolman Tim said is that Pri-G will not just preserve gasoline, it will restore gasoline. So if you have gasoline that's been stored longer than it should have been, and you put Pri-G into it, he says it basically brings it back up almost to new standards. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he said. Utah Mike rotates. I don't like, the reason that three of mine, that the other three aren't full yet, is because they have those new OSHA, you have to push real hard to get it out, spouts on them. I bought some of the older spouts, and I've got to drill those and change out the spouts. I'm too old to take 5 gallons of gasoline, hold it up, and try to push it in and all that kind of. I want it easy, so I'm gonna change out the spouts on my gas cans. I need to get that done. It's been on my bucket list now for about 3 or 4 years. Yes, and we have used cooking oil conversion center up on the where Interstate 35 splits into east and west, just north of Waco, and it's owned by Willie Nelson, and so all of his diesel there is basically old cooking oil and motor oil that he's converted into diesel fuel. So yes, very good idea. I'll take coffee. I agree with you, Little Lone Prepper. I'll take coffee anyway I can get it. I showed you in this last Prepper Haul, there was a can of, I forget the name of the company. It was a Christmas item. 15, 3 different K-cups of 5 different types of coffee. And all but 3 of them are spiced. So, 12 K-cups of spiced coffee for Christmas and everything. 3 of them were a heavy black dark roast. And so Helen says, well, now we know why they were put on half price, because Best Buy date was back in December. So I said, oh, okay, well, we'll just set those aside and leave them in the tin, put an oxygen absorber in there, and then that way we can use those as barter items later on if we don't want to drink them now. But it turns out that the dark roast is pretty good. So we'll drink the dark roast, and then we'll use the others for barter items. Hello, Henry family. Welcome. Haven't seen you before. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you enjoy what you're doing here tonight, and that you will join us and subscribe to us. So for those of you who are new, this is the last week that we're discussing this book. It's in the show notes. You can also get the PDF where you can get it for free. So you don't have to buy the book if you don't want to. If you do buy the book, the link is to my Amazon store. I get 2% of the price. Starting next Tuesday, we're doing this book. So we're going to do the introduction and the first 4 chapters of this book starting next Tuesday. And the link to purchase it from my Amazon store is also in the show notes. So if you want to join us next week and join that discussion, the primary thing they're talking about, this book was designed as a 52-week course to get you prepared for whatever and to learn a whole bunch of skills. So the first 4 chapters, I'm speeding it up because I think SHTF is imminent. So I'm speeding it up. The first 4 chapters we'll be discussing next week, along with the introduction, is all about basically coming up with your food plan and how to store it. So, using oxygen absorbers and vacuum sealers and stuff like that. So that's what we'll be doing. Okay. You're absolutely true. Absolutely true. You know, and I keep getting curveballs thrown at me. Golly. So anyhow, I hope I'm reacting to those curveballs well. Sometimes I don't. You know, I'm human. So the unknown knows. It lives in a hurricane zone. We are right at the end of Tornado Alley. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised my sister survived the Gerald F5. She lives up in the Gerald area, and she lives in a double wide. And so that area was one of the strongest tornadoes ever recorded in the U.S. It broke into 3 and came down into Round Rock. And as a matter of fact, I was working at Dell at the time, and they put us all down in the basement. But the basement, the south side of the basement, it's the cafeteria is down in the basement, and the south side was all glass. And so I said, no, I don't want to be in the basement for this tornado when it hits us. But yeah, so we're right at the very southern end of Tornado Alley. Let me see what else here. Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Craig found another dealer. I called a couple other dealers that I know, and one said that he would buy it from him for spot minus 80. So he's going to get 1950 versus 2030 for a 1 ounce gold coin. Okay, so let's get back to the banner, see if we can't get these done. Golly, it's 1 hour already. So I said point of sale systems won't work. We talked about fuel. We talked about communications. So now let's get down here. There won't be any emergency services you can contact since you won't have comms. So police, make sure you're able to handle it yourself. Fire, do you have what you need to fight fires? Make sure you have fire extinguishers. Make sure you have smoke detectors, carbon dioxide detectors. Carbon monoxide detectors. We have probably 3 carbon monoxide detectors here throughout the house. Remember, the carbon monoxide is heavier than air, slightly heavier than air, so it'll come from the ground up. Smoke will come from the top down, so you have a safe zone in the middle. So if you have your smoke detector up kind of just above your head, and you have your carbon monoxide detector just about waist level, that area in between is going to be your safe zone for breathing. And then, of course, the other thing is my buddy Roman owns a company called Mira Safety, and they have a phenomenally fantastic. As a matter of fact, let me see, just 1 second. So the filters that come with this mask are designed for a smoke environment. To turn it into an NBCR, nuclear, biological, chemical, and radiological filter, all you have to do is buy new filters. But this is the CM6M. The reason I've shaved off my beard, if you'll notice the first 2 years of YouTube, I have a beard. I shaved it off so that I can get a seal with this, okay? So I have the, right now it has a smoke seal on it. I'm sorry, a smoke filter. And then I have an additional smoke filter. And then I ordered 2 CBRN filters. And so we've got one for me, one for Helen. Very important piece of kit, in my opinion. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate Mira Safety. I really got excited. I got a notice from them. Oh, by the way, I'm an affiliate. There's an affiliate code down below, and there's also a discount code. But anyhow, I was so excited because they had an NBC shower and decontamination system. I said, Yahoo! Because that's one of my plans is I have my entire back porch set up as an NBC or CBRN is what they call it now. NBC was when I was on active duty, but CBRN is what they call it nowadays. So I have my whole backyard set up as a decontamination area, my back porch. And so then I was watching a video from a new guy I just recently subscribed to, and I forget his name, or I would mention him because he's only got like 200 subscribers. really, really good channel. And he turned me on to this. So this is a battery operated shower system that I got on Amazon. And I'll put a link to it down in the show notes as well. This is a battery operated one. So the difference is the one I had hangs from a rafter, and I think it's life straw. And so it just hangs from the rafter. Whatever the ambient temperature is, unless you have it in the sun, is going to be the temperature of the water you get. And you have the shower hose, you got 3 gallons, that's it. This one, because it has this little attachment down here that's battery operated, goes inside a bucket of water. So you can basically get the temperature of the water, the temperature you want your shower to be, dunk that down inside of it, and as the bucket empties out, you can add more water in at the temperature you want, so you can have warm showers, even in a CBRN environment, if that's what you want. So great piece of equipment. Thank you so much to him, and I will look for his channel and put it in, because great guy. I think you need to follow him. There won't be any ambulances available to you, so you need to have first aid and medical information planned. Remember, I am so afraid. We had a family member when lightning struck our sewage pumping system, because it took our sewage, collected at a pond at a collection point, then it electrically lifted it up over a hill, and then it gravity fed into the sewage center for Austin. And so lightning struck that pump, and it backed up and got into Brushy Creek. And when it got into Brushy Creek, it affected our drinking water supply. There was a crack in the karst that somehow or other managed to get the sewage 150 yards upstream into our drinking water wellhead. And so we had a family member who was the first confirmed case of cryptosporidiosis, and not a good disease. So you need this in case you have a sewage spill or anything like that available, around you. That's another one of those medications you need to have planned. Make sure you have at least a 3-month supply of any medications that you need. There won't be any water supply. There won't be any purification of water, because there won't be electricity. There won't be any pumping of water, because there won't be electricity. So make sure you have a plan on how you're going to collect, purify, and store your water. There's also not going to be any sanitation. So how are you going to dispose of, number one, rubbish? So that's just going to be the trash that you normally accumulate. As you empty this out, how do you get rid of it? You just don't want to have a whole bunch of stuff that's going to attract insects and rodents in a pile in your backyard. You got to have a plan. How are you going to get rid of that? Second thing is, human beings, when we eat, we consume, and it changes. We take the good stuff out of it. It goes into our body as minerals and life-sustaining stuff. Then the rest of it is basically evacuated from your body. And so what are you going to do with all that evacuated stuff? Have a plan on how you're going to get rid of that. I just bought a book called Humanure, Humanure, and it talks about composting human manure, human waste, so that you can use it as composting material for your garden. There is a safe way to do that. The Germans do that, by the way. They use their human manure and put it on their farmlands for their grass for their cattle. And I think that's the end of my planned discussions, right at an hour and 10 minutes. So let's see what the comments are. I will. Hill Country, I'll put that on there. I'll try to get that done while I'm watching Gray Man Prepping this evening. Normally I wouldn't do it until next morning. I'll try to get all this stuff done here in the next couple of hours. Let me see. Using rubbish to start a campfire. Yeah, I wouldn't either. Now, there are some things, labels on the cans and things like that, you can use as tinder, but I would not make it the primary thing you're going to use for the fire. Fire blanket is a great idea, absolutely. Scott, you're quite welcome. I'm sorry we ran over and kept you here too long. Okay, so the book for next week is going to be Food Storage for Preppers, a week-by-week plan for surviving an apocalypse, We're going to fast track this. We're going to do it in 13 weeks instead of 52. And then the one that we're finishing up this evening that we're talking about right now is Grid Down, Death of a Nation. I'll leave the link for both the free PDF as well as the book in the show notes for the next week, okay? And that'll give you plenty of time to get it, to get the PDF form and save it if you want to, or to order the book. Okay, so that's where we are. Let me see. We've got alternative homesteading. Thank you for being here. Any final questions before we call this a night? Sumi is fading. I'm fading. And I want to get over and see Gray Man Prepping and his discussion about how to act in a FEMA camp and what not to do. So, Book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So remember, we're all in this together. Gosh, I wish I had you as neighbors. Would love to work with you so that we can all survive this together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is how we're going to survive. Take care, everybody. Thank you for being here. Hope to see you next Monday for the government class, U.S. Government and Civics 101, and at 8 o'clock Central. And then Tuesday night, we're going to start with food storage for preppers. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.